My name is Nathan Carter, and before everything happened, I was just an ordinary teenager living in Houston, Texas. If you had met me back then, you would have thought I had a pretty normal life, because I did. I had a great family, good friends, and a passion that defined me: swimming. The pool was my second home. I had been swimming competitively since I was 6, and by the time I turned 13, it wasn't just a hobby, it was my life. Early morning practices, afternoon drills, weekend competitions. Every moment outside of school was dedicated to training, pushing my limits, trying to be the fastest in the water. I loved the feeling of gliding through the pool, the silence beneath the surface, the rush of adrenaline as I reached the final lap. There was something peaceful about it, almost meditative. I felt invincible in the water, as if nothing could ever go wrong. That illusion shattered on the morning of February 12, 2019. It was a cold morning, the kind that made you shiver the second you stepped out of bed. The alarm buzzed at 4:45 a.m., and I groggily pulled myself up, rubbing my eyes. Like every other day, I grabbed my gear, threw on my team jacket, and tiptoed downstairs so I wouldn't wake my parents. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the wooden floor beneath my feet. By 5:15 a.m., I was at the pool, the sharp scent of chlorine filling the air. My teammates were already stretching, some yawning, others wide awake and ready to jump in. Coach Bennett clapped his hands together, his voice echoing in the large indoor facility. "All right, let's push today. No excuses. We're going all in." I remember nodding, determined. That morning, I was set on breaking my personal record in the 400-meter individual medley. My heart pounded with excitement as I stepped onto the block, adjusting my goggles. The water shimmered under the fluorescent lights, a familiar and comforting sight. The whistle blew. I launched myself into the water, my body slicing through the surface. Stroke after stroke, turn after turn, I pushed harder than ever before. My arms burned, my lungs ached, but I kept going, fueled by pure willpower. The final lap was near. I could see the end. I took a deep breath and kicked harder. Then everything changed. At first, it was just a strange tightness in my chest. A pressure like someone pressing their palm right over my heart. I thought it was exhaustion. I had been training harder than usual, maybe I had pushed too far. But then the tightness turned into something else. A weight. A crushing, unbearable weight. I couldn't breathe. Panic set in. The water, which had always felt like home, suddenly became my enemy. I tried to push forward, but my arms wouldn't move the way they should. My legs felt weak. My vision blurred. The sounds of the pool, the splashes, the echoes of my teammates' voices, all of it started to fade. Darkness crept in from the edges of my vision, and in that moment, I knew something was terribly wrong. I remember sinking, my body growing heavy. The water wrapped around me like a blanket, pulling me down. It was quiet, eerily quiet. No sound, no pain, just an overwhelming sense of stillness. I should have been afraid. I should have been fighting. But I wasn't. Then, just before everything faded to black, a single thought crossed my mind. This isn't how it ends. Before we continue, I have something special for you. If you're watching this, I want you to be part of this journey with us. Comment your name and city below, because in our next video, I'll be sending out a special message to those who do. Imagine thousands of people hearing your name, giving you a moment in the spotlight. Think of it as your 1 minute of fame, a moment where you become part of this incredible community. So don't be shy, drop your name, your city, and leave a like. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Join this growing community where we share experiences that touch lives, inspire faith, and open hearts. You don't want to miss what comes next. Stay with me, there's so much more to this story. Darkness. Not the kind you experience when you close your eyes at night. This was different. It was deep, vast, consuming. I had no sense of my body, no feeling of weight or time. For a moment, I thought maybe this was a dream, some strange trick of the mind. But then I felt something else, movement. I wasn't just floating. I was being pulled. At first, it was subtle, like the gentle tug of an unseen current. But then the force grew stronger, dragging me forward at an impossible speed. I couldn't see where I was going, but I could feel it. A tunnel of pure void, stretching endlessly in every direction, yet narrowing as I moved. And then came the whispers. They were faint at first, like the rustling of dry leaves in the wind. But they grew louder, distinct, filling the emptiness around me. Voices layered upon voices, speaking in a language I couldn't understand, yet somehow their meaning seeped into my mind. They were crying, begging, pleading for a second chance. I tried to stop. I didn't want to go any further. I willed myself to resist the pull, to turn back, but I was powerless. The force dragging me was stronger than anything I had ever felt. And as I moved deeper, the air, if I could even call it that, grew heavy with something thick, oppressive. A presence. It was not of this world. Suddenly, the tunnel widened and I was no longer alone. I saw them. Shadows, figures trapped in the darkness. Their faces were twisted in silent agony, eyes wide with terror. Some reached out, their translucent hands grasping at nothing, trying to escape an unseen force. Others stood motionless, their faces void of expression, lost in some eternal despair. I didn't know who they were, but something inside me whispered the truth. They were the lost ones. Those who had turned away from the light, who had chosen paths that led them here. And though no words were spoken, I could feel their thoughts pressing against me, their regret, their sorrow. And then I realized something chilling. They could see me. For a long moment there was silence. Then all at once they moved. A mass of hands reached out, grasping, pulling, clawing at me. Their mouths opened in silent screams, their fingers digging into my arms, my shoulders, my chest. They were desperate. They wanted me with them. I panicked. I tried to fight, to push them away, but they clung to me like drowning souls, refusing to let go. Their touch was ice cold, burning, draining me of something I couldn't define. I was losing myself. And then, just as I thought I would be pulled into their abyss, something happened. Light. Brighter than anything I had ever seen, more radiant than the sun itself. It erupted from nowhere, piercing through the shadows, pushing back the darkness. The figures recoiled, their anguished cries fading into the void. And then the voice. It wasn't a sound. It was a force, a presence that resonated through every fiber of my being. It wasn't just heard, it was felt. You do not belong here. The moment those words were spoken, everything changed. The darkness vanished. The oppressive weight lifted. And suddenly I was no longer falling. I was rising. Faster, higher. The world of shadows fell away beneath me, and above, the light grew stronger, purer. My heart, which had been gripped by terror, now felt something else entirely, peace. A warmth surrounded me, not like the heat of fire, but something deeper, something that reached into the core of my soul. It was love. Pure, overwhelming love. And then, through the radiance, I saw him. I couldn't move. Not because I was paralyzed, but because I didn't dare to. The light before me wasn't just bright, it was alive. It pulsed with an energy that I could feel down to my very soul. Every fiber of my being vibrated in its presence, as if my existence itself was responding to something far greater than I could comprehend. And then he stepped forward. At first I couldn't see his face. The radiance was too intense, too powerful, like trying to look directly into the sun. But I didn't need to see his face to know who he was. Jesus. Not the soft, gentle figure I had seen in paintings. Not the quiet shepherd holding a lamb. This was Jesus in his full glory, majestic, mighty beyond words. His presence filled the space around me, not just with power but with something deeper, something that reached into the very essence of my being, love. And yet, despite the love, I couldn't help but tremble. I had never felt so small, so unworthy. Standing before him was like standing before all of eternity itself. Every thought, every action, every hidden part of my life was laid bare in his presence. I couldn't hide, I couldn't make excuses. There was nothing but the truth. And then he spoke. His voice was not like any voice I had ever heard. It wasn't just sound, it was life itself. It resonated through me, within me, filling every part of who I was. Nathan. He called me by name. Not as a stranger, not as a mere mortal, but as someone he had known since before time began. His voice held both love and sorrow, as if he saw something in me that even I didn't fully understand. Do you know why you are here? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What could I possibly say? I had no answer, no explanation for why I was standing before the King of Kings. But he didn't wait for me to respond. With a simple movement of his hand, everything changed. It was as if a veil had been lifted from my eyes, and suddenly, I was no longer standing in the presence of light. I was watching my life unfold before me. Every moment, every choice, every thought, every word I had ever spoken, it was all there. I saw myself as a child running through my backyard, laughing as my father chased me. I saw my mother tucking me in at night, whispering prayers over me as I drifted off to sleep. I saw every kindness I had ever given, every moment of love, of warmth, of light. And then, I saw the other moments. The times I had turned away when someone needed help. The times I had chosen my own comfort over kindness. The words I had spoken in anger, the thoughts I had entertained in secret. But it wasn't just the actions themselves, it was the ripple effects. I saw the way my choices had touched the lives of others, even in ways I had never realized. I saw how a single careless word had wounded a friend so deeply that it altered the way they saw themselves. I saw how my moments of selfishness had created pain I never meant to cause. Tears filled my eyes. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Jesus stood beside me, saying nothing, allowing me to see. And then he showed me something else. I saw the world through his eyes. It was overwhelming. I saw people moving through their daily lives, unaware of the unseen battle surrounding them. I saw chains wrapped around some, holding them captive, yet they walked as if they were free. I saw others surrounded by darkness, reaching out for something, anything that might save them. And then I saw the churches. They were full of people singing, raising their hands, praying. But as I looked closer, I saw something that shook me to my core. Some of them were empty inside. Their lips moved in worship, but their hearts were distant. They knew his name, but they didn't know him. I wanted to cry out, to warn them, to shake them awake. But before I could, Jesus turned to me. His eyes that held all the love in the universe, looked deep into mine. "Nathan," he said again, "there is something you must see." And with that, the vision shifted once more. The world around me shifted again, like a canvas being repainted before my very eyes. The scenes of my life faded, and suddenly I was somewhere else entirely. At first, I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. The space around me was vast, stretching endlessly in every direction. It felt like standing at the edge of eternity. The air, or whatever it was, vibrated with an energy I could feel deep in my chest. And then in front of me, a book appeared. But this was no ordinary book. It was massive, glowing with a radiance that pulsed like a living thing. Its pages weren't made of paper but of pure light, and the names written inside shimmered like fire. The sheer magnitude of it made my heart pound. The Book of Life. I knew what it was before Jesus even spoke. "Watch," he commanded, his voice both gentle and unshakable. The book opened. As the pages turned, I saw names. Millions of them. Some burned brightly, unwavering and strong. Others flickered like dying embers. And then, to my horror, I saw some begin to fade, slowly at first, then faster, until they vanished completely, as if they had never been there at all. I gasped. "Why are they disappearing?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jesus looked at me, sadness in his eyes. "These are the ones who once knew me but chose to turn away. With every sin they embraced, with every whisper of the world they followed instead of my voice, their names grew dimmer. Some will return before it is too late. Others will not." I felt my chest tighten. I recognized some of the names. People I knew. Friends, teachers, neighbors. People who thought they were safe, who believed they were saved simply because they went to church, because they called themselves believers, but had never truly given their hearts to him. I saw entire congregations where the worship was loud, where hands were raised, but the names in the book, they were fading. "But Lord," I cried, "they believe in you. They go to church. Jesus' expression was solemn. "Even the demons believe, and tremble. But belief is not enough. The heart must be mine. Entirely." His words struck me like a wave. I thought of how many people, myself included, had lived as if there was always time. As if tomorrow was guaranteed. As if simply believing in God, simply saying a prayer once, was enough. And then the vision shifted again. I was no longer standing before the Book of Life. Instead, I was above the world, looking down at it from a perspective I had never seen before. And what I saw chilled me to my core. Darkness was spreading across the earth. Not a physical darkness, but something deeper, more sinister. It moved like a living shadow, stretching into cities, creeping into homes, invading hearts. And within that darkness I saw figures, dark, twisting, whispering things. Demons. They moved among people, their voices like poison in the air. "You have time," they whispered. "God is love, he wouldn't send you away. You're a good person, there's nothing to worry about." And people, they believed the lies. I saw crowds marching toward destruction, smiling, laughing, completely unaware of what awaited them. I wanted to scream, to warn them, to make them see what I was seeing. But no one could hear me. The weight of it was unbearable. "Jesus," I whispered, my voice trembling. "What can I do? How can I stop this?" He turned to me, his gaze unwavering. "Tell them." A moment passed before he spoke again, and when he did, his voice carried an urgency I had never heard before. "Time is shorter than they know. Before we continue, I have something special for you. If you're watching this, I want to make you part of this journey with us. Comment your name and city below, because in our next video, I'll be sending out a personal shout out to those who do." Imagine thousands of people hearing your name, feeling like you're part of something bigger, something real. Think of it as your 1 minute of fame, a chance to connect with this incredible community. And if you haven't yet, leave a like to support this message and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. We are in this together, and your presence here means more than you know. Stay with me, this story is far from over. I stood in silence, my heart pounding as Jesus' words echoed through me. Tell them? A simple command, yet it carried the weight of eternity. I wanted to respond, to say that I understood, but the truth was I didn't. How could I? How could I explain what I had seen? How could I make people understand the urgency, the reality of what was happening? Jesus must have seen the turmoil in my heart because his expression softened. He stepped closer and suddenly the vision of the world faded. I was no longer looking down at cities wrapped in darkness. Instead, I found myself standing before something vast and radiant, the gates of heaven. The light here was unlike anything I had seen before. It wasn't just bright, it was alive. It moved like waves, flowing outward, touching everything with warmth and peace. And just beyond the gates I could hear something: music, voices, laughter. It was the sound of pure joy. The kind of joy that has no shadow, no fear, no pain. The kind of joy that fills you completely, so much so that I felt tears forming in my eyes, overwhelmed by its beauty. I wanted to step forward. I wanted to go inside. But Jesus placed a hand on my shoulder, stopping me. Not yet. His voice was filled with love but also a deep sadness. He turned, and as if answering the question forming in my mind, he showed me something else. The gates of heaven were not full. There was space, empty places that had been meant for people who never arrived. Many were invited, Jesus said, but they refused to come. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I thought of all the faces I had seen in the book of life, the names that had faded away. I thought of the people I had seen walking blindly into darkness, of the whispers that told them they had time, and how they believed it. Then, just as I was about to speak, the vision changed again. I was no longer standing before heaven's gates. I was back in the world, but it was different. I saw people awakening. I saw hearts turning back. I saw revival, a fire spreading, not of destruction but of hope. People fell to their knees in repentance, crying out to God, surrendering everything to Him. I saw churches breaking free from complacency, standing boldly in truth. I saw families restored, lives redeemed, souls saved. And then Jesus turned to me again. This is why you must go back. I felt something inside me tighten. I had seen the darkness. I had seen the fate of those who turned away. But now I had seen something else, the possibility of change. The chance for redemption. There was still time. Not much, but enough. Jesus took a step closer, and his next words were spoken with such tenderness that they wrapped around my heart like a promise. You were not meant to stay here. Your time is not yet finished. But when you return, you must speak. You must tell them what you have seen. There will be those who will listen, and there will be those who will not. But the choice is theirs to make. I looked into his eyes, and for the first time I understood. This was my mission. I had to return. I had to tell the world what I had seen. And just as that realization settled within me, the light around us began to shift. A warmth spread through my chest, and I felt something pulling me, not down but back. Back to where I had come from. Back to the world. The light around me pulsed, shifting like waves in the ocean. I felt its warmth seep into me, not just into my skin but into something deeper, my soul. I was being pulled back. It was different from before. When I had first been drawn into the spiritual realm, I had felt weightless, powerless, like a leaf caught in a storm. But now there was purpose in the movement. It was as if I was being carried, guided, placed exactly where I needed to be. Jesus' presence remained with me even as the radiance around me began to fade. His words still echoed in my heart, each one pressing into me like an unshakable truth. Tell them? I didn't know how long the journey lasted. Time didn't feel the same here. One moment, I was surrounded by the infinite presence of heaven's glory. The next, I felt cold. And then pain. My lungs burned as I gasped for air. A sharp jolt shot through my chest, and I heard muffled voices, chaotic movement. The world around me was blurry, unfocused. Lights flickered above me, fluorescent, artificial. I was back. The sound sharpened as my body adjusted to the return. Shouting, crying. The beeping of medical equipment. A firm grip on my wrist. My head spun as I tried to move, and then, I saw them. The faces hovering above me, their expressions frozen in shock. My coach. My teammates. Paramedics. The panic in their eyes was unmistakable. Some were crying, others stood motionless, staring at me like they had seen a ghost. Maybe they had. Nathan, someone choked out. It was my coach. His face was pale, his hands trembling. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry raw. I swallowed hard, every sense of my physical body rushing back all at once. I was alive. The realization settled in slowly. My heart, the same heart that had stopped beating, was beating again. My lungs, which had been still and lifeless for over 9 minutes, were pulling in air once more. It was impossible. Medically, scientifically, I shouldn't have been here. But I was, because I had been sent back. Because I had a mission. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to make sense of it all. My body was weak, drained, as if I had run a marathon with no rest. But my spirit burned with an urgency I had never felt before. The images of what I had seen flashed through my mind. The book of life. The lost souls. The darkness spreading. The empty places beyond heaven's gates. And most of all, Jesus' voice. Time is shorter than they know. I opened my eyes again. The room was still filled with shock, disbelief. Someone was calling for a doctor. Someone else was whispering about a miracle. They didn't understand yet. But they would. Because I would tell them. Hey, before we continue, I just want to take a second to say something important. This message, this journey, is something we share with you because we believe in it with all our hearts. We don't make money from this. We do it because we feel called to. Because this message matters. And if you're here, it means you matter to this community. So if you want to support this work, leave a like. It really helps spread this story. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to be part of this incredible journey. This isn't just about one person's experience. It's about all of us together seeking truth and light in a world that needs it.
The hospital room felt too small for what I had just experienced. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above me. The voices of doctors and nurses blurred together as they checked my vitals, murmuring about how I shouldn't be alive, about how there was no medical explanation for what had happened. But I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about him, the way his voice had resonated through me, the way he had shown me things that changed everything I thought I knew. The weight of what I had seen pressed against my chest, it wasn't fear anymore, it was urgency, because I had been given something rare, a second chance, not just to live, but to warn others. As I recovered, I tried to put everything into words. I wanted to tell everyone, my parents, my friends, my doctors, but how do you explain something beyond human understanding? How do you tell someone that you saw the book of life, that you saw people walking into darkness without realizing where they were going? Most people don't wake up thinking about eternity. They think they have time, but what Jesus showed me is that time is running out. I wasn't sent back just to tell an incredible story. I was sent back with a message for you. I want you to understand this. This isn't about religion. This isn't about being good enough. This is about your soul. It's about knowing, truly knowing, that your name is written in the book of life. It's about not just believing in Jesus, but surrendering to him completely. Because there are only two paths. One leads to life, to light, to eternity in the presence of the one who created you, the one who loves you beyond all measure. The other leads to separation, to a darkness so absolute that even the lost souls there scream for a second chance, a chance they will never get. I saw them. I heard their cries, and I wouldn't wish that fate on my worst enemy. But the choice is still yours. Jesus said, "Tell them," and so I am. I don't know how much time is left, but I know this. There's still time right now. If you're watching this, it's not too late for you. Right now, wherever you are, take a moment. Look inside yourself. Be honest. Not with me, not with anyone else, but with God. Because I promise you, he's waiting. And one day soon, the door will close. Make sure you're on the right side when it does. Thank you for being here, for being part of this journey. If this message spoke to you, please leave a like and subscribe. We do this because we believe it's what we're meant to do. We don't make money from it, and we don't do it for fame. We do it because someone needs to hear this. Maybe that someone is you. Also, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment with your name and city below, because in our next video, we'll be giving a special shout out to those who do. Imagine thousands of people hearing your name. It's a small way to show that we're all connected, that this isn't just another video, but a community of people seeking the truth together. And before you go, I have something important for you. There's another video waiting for you right now, one that could open your eyes even further, One that could be exactly what you need to hear today. All you have to do is click on it. It's right there on your screen. I'll see you there. Rock it!